First event of the season in Abu Dhabi saw a tremendous start from the second row for Enrique Bernoldi in the Nissan, charging through to the front as the Ford of Maxime Martin lost ground. The Nissan went out in front. Meanwhile, Peter Dumbreck was busy defending his second place from the Ford, but Max Martin was having none of it and moved into second place to go chasing after the all-Brazilian Nissan that was still leading the race. As we approached the first round of pit stops, everybody knew it was going to be a tight battle once they came in. The top 5 cars were virtually together as they came into pit lane. Enrique Bernoldi led the queue, followed by Maxime Martin. Handing over to Ricardo Zonta in the Nissan and to Fred Makovicky in the Ford. But this is where it all got a little bit difficult. Zonta got away well, Makovicky got away from the inside, but up front, the Aston, the Hexis Aston, was ahead of everybody, almost unseen. The clash between Nissan and Ford continued throughout most of the pit lane. Eventually the Ford got in front, but it was in the wrong as it should have given way. The puncture caused to Ricardo Zonta's car meant that they basically didn't play a part in the rest of the day. And it was Richard Westbrook taking over the number 22 Nissan who managed to get out in front of the Ford GT to move into what was now second place. And that was because the Hexis Aston Martin, now being driven by newcomer Stef Dusseldorp, had got in front of everybody, and this car had a 6-second lead. Well, Westbrook was able to close that gap up, and in the final laps began to put the car shared by Clivio Piccioni under increasing pressure. But despite everything that Richard Westbrook threw at him, the youngster held firm, and Stef Dusseldorp came through to take the first win of the season for the Hexis Aston Martin team. An absolutely brilliant result from the small team that had delivered first time out in 2011. Westbrook and Dumbreck celebrated their second place with Basseng and Winkelhock third. From the United Arab Emirates, the FIA GT1 World Championship has swept into the Zolder circuit in northeast Belgium. Aston Martin started strongly in Abu Dhabi, but the weekend went backwards for the young driver team. Thomas Enger crashed at the start of the qualifying race and ultimately had to settle for 6th in the championship race, while the number 8 car of Turner and Mucker looked set to win the first race until an errant wheel nut caught them out. The Hexis AMR team more than made up for that with 4th and victory in the main race following a brilliant defensive drive from rookie Stef Dusseldorp.
I had an amazing start of the season, of course. No one expected to win in Abu Dhabi, and neither did I. So we're now here as championship leaders, and it's a bit of my home track. Of course, I do my best and I hope to score some more points for the championship. It's going to be a little more difficult with 30 kilo extra, but yeah, we do our best.
Corvette may only be represented by 2 cars, but the American Warhorse is still a contender. Mike Hazemans is a former hat-trick winner of the Zolder 24-hour race, and it's a track well known to his young Dutch teammate, who was impressive despite the odd error last time. Meanwhile, the DKR Corvette is driven by 2 newcomers, Brazilian former IndyCar driver Jamie Camara and French pilot Michael Rossi, who finished 2nd in the SEAT Eurocup last year.
My first race in GT was a very good experience, very good challenge. New car, new track, new drivers. I was motivated to come here in Zolder. I know the track better than Abu Dhabi, and I was motivated to improve because I realized that my step to arrive to the top is bigger than before. But for my first time, I have to say that everything was okay.
This is a big weekend for the Ford drivers as Zolder is home turf for both teams. Bas Linders will be anxious to put his engine problems behind him as he and Mark Canarici attempt to put points on the board. The other Mark VDS car won the qualifying race in Abu Dhabi and can be expected to be fast again here. At Belgian Racing, Milos Pavlovic and Martin Matzke are chasing their first points, while we have 2 rookies in the other car in the shape of Matthias Besch and Vanina X.
I am very much looking forward to race this weekend in Zolder. Last time I was here it was 2008. And it was for the 24 hours, so it's a completely different mindset because here is a sprint race, 200% concentration from the first lap to the end. I hope we can have a consistent one with my teammate Matthias Besch.
The Lamborghini Murcielago is still being learnt by Swiss Racing Team after a late deal left them only a few days to prepare for the first race. But Carl Wendlinger is a former FIA GT race winner here, and Peter Cox knows the place like the back of his hand. However, it is the Al Inkel team that might be expected to deliver results here, bearing in mind the podium at Abu Dhabi for Basseng and Winkelhock and the sheer pace of the Nicky Pastorelli Dominic Schwager car. fastest in qualifying, but which ultimately failed to score a single point at the last event due to incidents at the start of both races.
We had a lot of bad luck in Abu Dhabi, and it was very disappointing. The mechanics did a great job to fix the car and everything, and we just couldn't get points. But the pace was really positive, and we're looking forward to this weekend in Zolder. I think also on this track we should be in the front, somewhere in the front, and collect some points for the championship.
Nissan left the Middle East with one pair of drivers sitting second in the points. Richard Westbrook has fond memories of this place because it was here that he wrapped up the GT2 title in 2009. And he and Peter Dunbrek will hope to build on the round one result. Over at Sumo Power, however, there was disappointment for the Brazilian lineup of Enrique Bernoldi and Ricardo Zonta after leading the first part of the main race. It all went wrong in the pit lane, thanks to an incident with a Ford and a problem with the seatbelts.
We finished our pit stop. I get in the car. When I just leave the garage, the Ford car was in front of us in the pit lane garage, and he just dropped the car in 90 degrees to my car and hit me in the pit lane. And as everybody knows, who is first on the pit line has the preference, and I think it was a big mistake from them to release the car before my car was in the fast line.
A tribute there to Martin Bartek, founder of the Martek team, who sadly passed away this week. Welcome to the Zolder circuit for round two of the FIA GT1 World Championship. I'm Ben Edwards. Alongside me is former winner of the Belgian Grand Prix on this circuit, John Watson, and with all the news and interviews from pit lane is Hayley Coxon. And the car's already on the grid in what is an absolutely beautiful spring day here in Belgium.
Well, I think you've got to put this date in your diary because of all the years I've been coming to Zolder. There have been very few as nice as we have seen both yesterday, today. Look at that sky, not a cloud to be seen, and hopefully Sunday will be equally nice.
Well, the track hasn't changed much over the years. They've introduced one or two chicanes since its original opening in 1963, but it provides a decent test for drivers and cars alike, John.
It certainly puts a big premium on car, and particularly on the car setup. We know that it's very hard on the left front, certainly left rear also going to get punishment. Hard on brakes because the straights here are relatively short. There's a lot of heavy braking all around the racetrack, so the brakes take a hammering also. So as well as speed, it's not just about being fast, it's slowly catch the monkey, as they say.
Looking at the Corvette there on back on the fourth row of the grid. A good effort by both Mike Hazeman and Nick Katzberg. But here is the number 4 Hexis Aston Martin, and well, a little bit of a surprise from the Hexis team. This car did well. Christian Hohenadel qualifying well up towards the front end of the grid, but the other car, the championship leading car of Clivio Piccioni, right down towards the back.
Yes, on the 7th row, and basically Clivio put his hand up and said, look, sorry guys, on the last lap of that first qualifying segment, I made an error. We calculated it was only 0.7 of a second, but that 0.7 of a second was the biggest 0.7 of a second in Clivio Piccioni's career because it meant they didn't move forward. They ought to have been in the final 8 to get through to this top 8 qualifying.
Richard Westbrook starts on the second row of the grid as second in the championship. They could become championship leaders, he and Peter Dumbreck, by the end of this race. Moving up onto the front row of the grid, though, we've got the number 8 Aston Martin, which is 6th in the points. A new pairing there in terms of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker, but they're both vastly experienced with Aston Martin. But this is the car starting on pole. It is the number 37 Alinkel.com Munich Motorsport Lamborghini Murcielago. It should have started on pole last time in Abu Dhabi, but they got penalised for an infringement, a technical error in starting the car during qualifying, so they got demoted several places. They have yet to score a podium, in spite of it being the same driver lineup as they had last year, so that's really got to be their ambition. I'm sure they're going for the win, though, if they're starting from pole position. Nicky Pastorelli and Dominic Schwager.
Yes, but what was key to that pole lap was it was 0.5, half a second faster than the Müller-Enger Aston Martin alongside in the front row of the grid. So clearly the Lamborghini with Dominic Schwager and Nicky Pastorelli have got the pace. Whether they can make it last for the 1 hour of this race, whether they're going to overdrive the car, or whether the Aston alongside of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker will do enough at the start to get the advantage into turn 1, well, we'll know very shortly.
Yep, the cars are about to go away on their formation lap. You've got the 2 front row sitters there. The Lamborghini on the right as you look at it, starting from pole position. Scored absolutely nothing in Abu Dhabi after getting involved in a first corner accident that Thomas Enger caused. Well, Enger starts this race from the second row this time in his Aston Martin. It's Stefan Mucker in the other Aston Martin, the one that starts on the front row. First to the Nissans on that second row on the right as we look at it there. It is Richard Westbrook who shares the car with Peter Dumbreck. Good to see the crowds here already on the Saturday. This is the qualifying race, remember. Looking quickly on board the Stefan Mucker Aston Martin as they go away then on the formation lap.
So it's a short pit straight down to turn 1. Like most of the corners here at Zolder, but in particular turn 1, it's key not to overbrake. If you do, you'll run wide, you'll run into the gravel on the outside. We saw back Fred Makivicki in his Ford GT this morning get caught out by doing that. Also Carl Wendlinger in his Lamborghini. The key here in Zolder is brake slightly earlier, get the speed off, then you've got a very wide exit to drive the corner up to turns 2 and 3, which in effect are just one corner.
Remember, you can keep up with the timing and scoring on everything that's going on in this race at GT1world.com, where you can also catch up with lots of extra features, GT1 TV, where we go behind the scenes as well. So I hope you can log on to GT1world.com. Take a look at the cars. The front-engined V12 powered Aston Martin has proven to be pretty fast so far this weekend. It's starting on the front and second rows, but we've got a mid-engine car, the Lamborghini, that has actually taken pole.
Yes, and I mean the fundamental layout of the Lamborghini, like the Ford GT, is that of a pure racing car. For the Nissans and for the Aston Martins, well, they're more traditional in the GT layout, with the engine's fairly far back in the chassis. In fact, it almost intrudes in some cases right into the driver cockpit, but it's still effectively a front engine car.
Quick look at the grid then, behind the Westbrook in his Nissan. On the third row of the grid we've got Pagini in the Hexus Aston Martin, then that Corvette of Katzberg and Hesmond. Then we've got Brabham in the Nissan with Peter Cox in the Lamborghini, joining him on the fourth row, row 5. Another Nissan of Michael Krum, and the Ford of Makavicki, who went off in qualifying, starts on the fifth row, fast car that. Kamara in the Corvette has Winkelhock in the Lamborghini alongside on row 6, row 7. Düsseldorf, the championship leaders, 13th place on the grid with the Brazilians in the Nissan 14th. Then Bassleiders up against Vanina X. That'll be interesting on the 8th row. 9th row of the grid is Yuri Yanak and Martin Matzke. So Vanina X, John, didn't get out in qualifying because her teammate didn't get them through to the second segment of qualifying, so she comes in cold as she makes her debut in GT1.
Well, that's about as tough as you can get for Vanina, and she deserves better than that, but those are the rules and the regulations. The car I'm going to keep an eye on is that number 3 Hexus Aston Martin. Stef Düsseldorf in the car drove an absolutely blinding race in Abu Dhabi. He's got to make progress. He's got to get his car hopefully up into the top 10, and that's going to be a reasonable ask, starting from way back on the 7th row of the grid.
Yeah, but they made up 6 places through their pit stop in the first race in Abu Dhabi, and then they made up another 5 places in their second pit stop in the championship race. So the Hexus team were absolutely remarkable on their pit stops.
Well, it's so remarkable, it caught us out of the commentary booth. We could see it leading the race, but we didn't believe it. And it was only after further persuasion that we realised, yes, they are in the lead of the race.
We are getting ready for the qualifying race to get underway here at Zolder. Exquisite cars about to be hurled into the first corner, just millimetres apart. and guided by professional racers who only care about winning. It's the green light, away we go, and the Aston and the Lamborghini are absolutely side by side as they head down towards the first corner. But it looks as though the Lamborghini has the edge. Stefan Booker trying to go around the outside. Oh, and Sven right in front of the pack, and Enger's avoided it, but somebody else grabbed the lead, and the leader spin right in front of everybody else into the first bend, and out already has gone one of the Mark VDS Fords. That's Bas Linder's car, and that car is out already.
And it's the Corvette leading the race. Can you believe it? The Lamborghini contact with the Aston, tried to go round the outside, and it just didn't happen. The contact came, and it was just made bedlam in the middle of turn one.
Enger has dropped down to about third or fourth. You're right, it's the Corvette that leads. So absolute chaos, and a really interesting start for Nicky Katzberg, the youngster in the Corvette that he shares with Mike Hazelmans. Look at the break he's got in the Team Exim China car. Second place has come the Makovicky Ford. That's amazing how they got up through from the outside of the fifth row, and that's up to second place.
Well, all well in bedlam in turn one. It was a question of see the gap. Hopefully by the time you get to it, it's going to be clear. So the Corvette fastest in the first sector, fastest in the second sector, and who could believe it?
Yeah, well, that really has put a cat amongst the chickens, and once again that Alinkel Lamborghini in trouble. Now the other one, I think that's the 38 car who's running up there in third, so that's had a great start, Marcus Winkelhock. But what does Schwager and Pastorelli have to do to get a podium finish in GT1? It just never works, whatever happens for them. So across the line at the end of the first lap, it's Katzberg who leads, from Makovicky in the Ford in second place, Winkelhock in a Lamborghini in third, Enger is fourth in the Aston, Peter Cox is up to fifth in his Lamborghini, Christian Hohenadel in the Aston is up to sixth place, Krum is in seventh in the Nissan, Brabham eighth, Bernoldi ninth, and the top 10 is completed by the championship leader, Steph Dusseldorf.
I would like to see the conversation that's going on between the Lamborghini and the Aston Martin after that little moment, because Nicky Pastorelli and Stefan Muka were the two cars that tried to make it into turn one, and it didn't work for it.
Thomas Enger on the attack there, trying to get past Marcus Winkelhock. We saw Richard Westbrook coming into the pits in the number 22 Nissan. Bitterly disappointing for a team that hoped that they might be able to take the championship lead in this race. Points on offer for the qualifying race as well as the championship race, just not as many. The top two getting away a little bit, and Winkelhock is then sort of holding up this next group of cars. There's the work on Westbrook's car.
Yeah, a lot of damage left front, and that's, well, they can repair, they take the wheel tower off, but whether they are going to do anything, the bodywork they're going to leave. Interestingly, Stefan Muka, who was one of the two cars involved in that incident, has gone fastest in the second or first sector of the lap, and there he is trying to make up ground, gets through, dives down the inside of the Corvette.
Yeah, so Stefan Muka coming from way down. He's now up to 12th place, I think. Oh, and he made contact. He's on the grass, rubbing with the Ford. Well, that all seems pretty aggressive there, and the Corvette trying to take advantage, meanwhile, and has done so and squeezes the Ford out.
Yeah, no, that was very tough for the Ford. They really got bullied first by the Aston Martin, then by the Corvette, and now it's all pressure coming from the midfield.
Martin Matzke that was who got squeezed out. Let's take another look at the start here and try and find out where Muka and Pastorelli, what happened to them as they went into that first corner.
Side by side, but what Muka tries to do is go around the outside, maybe try to close the door on Nicky Pastorelli. Contact occurred, and that will, I mean, Muka will claim I had the corner, but he was on the outside of the corner. You can't shut the door. Just somewhere in that, there's the Ford pulling off to the left, bangs into the barrier already with a broken front suspension.
Let's take a look on board Muka here, John. This was how it looked from his point of view.
Well, he would say I was ahead. He would say that the Lamborghini drove into me.
Well, that ended him into the gravel. Certainly had a nose ahead. Here's another view of it as you look back. This is further back because the 38 car, that's Marcus Winkelhock. Oh, and that was a little nudge. Oh, in the middle of all that, my goodness.
Yeah, that was a little nudge, but that was not the front cars getting nudged. Those were cars that had made their way around the Aston Martin and the Lamborghini.
There is Peter Dumbreck just having a look, but Westbrook out of his car, so yeah, absolute disaster for them, a real disappointment. There's the race leader, though. Mike Hazelmans will be taking over that Corvette. He's got a little smile on his face.
I think you should do him. He must be absolutely delighted with the pace that the Corvette is showing right now and holding its own against Makovicky in the Ford, and then further back of the Aston Martin.
So the leaders come across the line. No change up there. We've still got the Corvette of Katzberg leading from the Ford. What's all that smoke in the background there? coming out of the chicane. I don't know whether somebody's got.
Oh, there is a spin. Is that Mucke?
Stefan Mucke, yeah, it is.
He's been involved with somebody up at there's a damage to me to the left rear of that car. Is it? I think probably got a puncture or a suspension, one of the two. So Stefan Mucke, who's been involved in 2 wars before this race, is little more than 5.5 minutes old.
Yeah, it just went past our commentary position. I had a quick look. I couldn't see a puncture, but there's definitely damage there.
Well, the car looks like it's crabbing. It doesn't look like it's running true.
Yeah.
So whether he got a little nerf in the final turn, 15-16 chicane, there it is. That looks like a nerf. But where's the car behind him? No, I think something failed.
Yeah.
Something in the car failed. That may well be the consequence of the contact that occurred in turn 1 with the Lamborghini of Nicky Pastorelli. So something has happened to the left rear and it's just let go in that final chicane.
So up front, the Corvette continues to lead this race from the Ford. Got some good racing going on further back here, though. Christian Hohenadel in the Aston Martin with the black and silver front there, being chased by the number 23 Nissan, and that's Michael Krum on board the Nissan, the German pairing of him and Lucas Law. Behind him is David Brabham in another Nissan, and then again another Nissan. That of Enrique Bernoldi, running 9th, is at the back of this particular chase. In riding on board the Aston Martin with Christian Hohenadel in this car, and doing a pretty good job at the moment. In fact, it's his teammate Andrea Piccini who starts the race, so Hohenadel did a good job in qualifying, but it's Piccini here we're looking back from, and Krum coming under a bit of attack himself, so he's got to watch his mirrors with David Brabham filling them.
Well, after that rather breathless start, we're sort of settling down, and the race will now begin to develop a pattern, and what is clear is that the Corvette's got a comfortable half a second lead over Makavicki in the Ford, and then we got Marcus Winkelhock third, just almost 2 seconds behind the second place Ford. Yeah, and it's still Enger having a look at Winkelhock for third place there. That's quite an interesting tussle between those two. Top 4 have definitely made a little bit of a break from the 5th place car, which is Peter Kops in the Lamborghini. So these four cars just trying to get away a little bit as they come down through Villeneuve chicane. Nick Katzberg, new to GT1, but Mike Hazeman's impressed with him in Abu Dhabi. He knows the young lad, has worked with him before. First time that they've shared a car on such an international stage. But Katzberg doing a fine job here, chased by Makavicki, who's had a real sort of played the joker here, because after qualifying that car was damaged. But there are a number of drivers who are out of this race. Is that Stefan? I think it is. Just walking back up the Stefan Mucke walking back up the pit lane, and that is very disappointing for him. Well, young Nicky Katzberg is going to get pressure from young Makavicki, Frederick Makavicki in the 4GT, who is going to be kept honest by Marcus Winkelhock, and behind the whole lot, Thomas Enger in the Aston. Nobody seems to be able to do anything, but the Ford certainly is the one of those 4 cars to me who looks the most threatening. Yeah, Makavicki went off at this area of track in qualifying, just nerfed the barrier on the outside, but not too much damage was done. You can look at his sectors, and he's been catching over the last couple of laps. In fact, his overall lap times have been good, so potentially he's got the faster car. Chased there by Marcus Winkelhock, who finished 3rd in Abu Dhabi in the championship race with Marc Basseng, and he really managed to pick his way through the chaos at the start there. A little bit of luck involved, it depended where you were, but he certainly made the most of it. Still under pressure though from Thomas Enger right behind, who must have thought, oh no, it's all going to go wrong again, because there were cars spinning in front of him as he came through that first corner. And the manner in which he tried to redeem himself in Abu Dhabi after being responsible for the incident at the start of the qualifying race was exemplary, and this time he knows just stay clean, out of trouble. You're in 4th place, long way to go, over 15 minutes of this race remaining. Yeah, so they've got to settle down onto a sort of rhythm now. Hazeman's just waiting to see how his young driver Nick Katzberg gets on in this situation. So far he's not making any mistakes. He's got Fred Makavicki, who's made the switch this year, of course, from Aston Martin to this Ford GT, the Mark VDS run Ford, so it's home territory for the team. Fred will be out to try and make up for that mistake in qualifying, and he's doing a fine job here. It's this part of the circuit where he thinks, or I think he's got maybe a slight advantage. Doesn't appear so from that onboard camera, but down the pit straight into turn 1, the Ford does run down the Corvette, but round the rest of the circuit everything looks right now to be pretty even Stevens. Changes up to 4th just as he comes out of turn 1, and then through this fast right-hander here opposite the canal. There's his canal turn that they come through now, fast bend that one, and then up to a little dab on the brakes before the right-hander that takes them onto the back stretch here. The Corvette looks very stable. You're looking from the Corvette. Nice clear road in front of you here. Lovely to have a clear road. The only thing is you don't want too much distraction going on behind you What you can do, of course, is just turn that mirror in the car, turn it away from anything that's so your mind is clear, not cluttered, feeling the pressure from a very, very feisty Makoviecki behind in the Ford.
Plunging down through the section that is very much between the trees here, and again trying not to cut the curve too much.
Well, I was going to say Makoviecki needs to be careful, because if he gets any more ambitious in the curve in the middle of turn 9, the Villeneuve chicane, he may actually find himself being penalised. The drivers have been warned not to shortcut the track, and in particular that area of the circuit.
We're on board with the third place car, so you've got the onboard on these top 3 cars. Fascinating to watch the differences. This is the Lamborghini, the big V12 mid-engine car. Marcus Winkelhoff still getting up to speed in this car. He's only done the one event at Abu Dhabi, got a good result from it. Up ahead of him is that V8 powered mid-engine Ford, and then up ahead of all of them is the V8 front-engine Corvette, big 7-litre engine in the front of that Corvette. I say the front, it's so far back in the front that it's what a
bit of bodywork. I think there's bodywork from some point of contact that got flicked up. Now, I don't think any of these 4 cars were involved in the incident in turn 1, but nevertheless there are bits of carbon fibre bodywork all around the racetrack at turn 1.
Yeah, got to be careful about that. Back on board with Nick Katzberg then in, as I say, front engine Corvette with the engine so far back it's almost in the cockpit with the driver. So beautifully designed piece of kit, this Corvette, and looking very strong here. Look at that bright blue sky, perfect weather conditions, not too hot, not like it was in Abu Dhabi. The drivers won't be sweating away too much poundage in this race. Top 4 stay pretty close together though, John, and you know pit stops as ever are going to be crucial. We're a little way off them yet, but if they're this close you can easily go from 4th to 1st, as we saw the Hexus Aston Martin do last time.
Indeed, it's a different pit lane, it's a much narrower, although the cars are much better spaced out, ironically, because there's the length of the pit lane has been more segmented to give people ease of coming in and coming out. Let's hope we don't see an incident or replay of what we saw in Abu Dhabi, where Makoviecki and it was Ricardo Zonta in the Nissan got together, and that was adjudged to be really Makoviecki at fault. So I think the drivers now will not repeat what we saw there.
Quick view from the camera pointing rearwards from the 2nd place car there. For a moment there was a gap opened up, but Winkelhoff's got it back down again, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know, there's the length, that telephoto lens tends to make everybody look more compacted, because when you come onto the start finish straight, the gap basically looks to be about the same. I'm just wondering again, bodywork, you can see it being flicked up. I don't know whether that's from, I assume it's from something that happened at the start. Mind you, the incident happened in the exit of the corner, not the entry to the corner.
That's right. Looking further back, Ticini in the Aston still 6th. Then it's Krum there in the Nissan in 7th. David Brabham with the white-fronted Nissan, the Sumo Power car, is in 8th. Then Bernoldi, teammate, is in 9th place. Düsseldorf is in 10th. Vanina X, by the way, running well in 11th place, so she got ahead of a few cars on that opening lap. She's held her position. She's in 11th place. Martin Matzke currently in 12th. Tamara is in 13th, ahead of Yanak. And Stefan Booker, we know, is out, and of course several other retirements, including Richard Westbrook, Nicky Pastorelli, and of course Bas Linders.
A very good job from Vanina X to literally jump in stone cold and put herself into 13th position. It's a very difficult circuit, she knows it very well, but it's not an easy step for her to make into a strange car with very little time in it.
Top 2 just making a bit of a break again on this lap. Nick Katzberg still under pressure there from Fred Makoviecki. So the Corvette and the Ford just drawing away a touch from the Lamborghini and the Aston Martin behind them. Then there's that gap back to the 5th place Lamborghini of Peter Kox. He's having a quietish race at this stage.
I think one of the issues that everybody will be concerned about in this group of 4 cars, not so much Katzberg and the Corvette leading, but the other 3, is that they run really nose to tail to each other. We know it's a hard track on tyres, we know it's a very hard track on brakes, so by running so close you're denying your car the little cooling opportunities that you would normally have. So maybe by just dropping back and give yourself and the car that momentary break to recharge the brake cooling particularly.
Smiley faces from the co-drivers at the top 2. We saw Max Martin first of all, who's going to take over the car number 41, which is currently running 2nd. And of course we saw Mike Hasemans again, who's looking forward to taking over the Corvette. But a lot will depend on their crews and whether they get the tyre change done as fast as possible. Beginning to see a little bit more opening here, except between the top 2, because they're very close.
And I think Fred Makoviecki in the Ford following the Corvette is again applying pressure. He's not concerned very much about running close to the tail of the Corvette. He really wants to put more and more pressure on the young Dutchman and force him into an error, and maybe force him to maybe outbrake himself and make the overtake even easier.
Yep, well, that's what he wants, but is that going to happen? We saw a great run from a youngster last time in Abu Dhabi in the Aston Martin, in Stef Dusseldorp, and Nick Katsberg is maintaining honour. He's only 23 years old, comes from Amersfoort in the Netherlands, knows this circuit pretty well. He's the European Renault Megane champion from last year and had 7 victories out of 13 races, so that's a pretty good scoring rate. Oh, and both Belgian racing Fords, the car of Vanina X and Martin Matzke. I do hope they haven't had it coming together.
Well, something's happened.
That's Vanina's car without a rear wing.
So she's going to go straight into the pit. How that happened, we're not quite sure. She was ahead of the other Ford, and they were 11th and 12th. And I suspect Matzke's trying to take a dive bomb into Vanina going into the Villeneuve chicane. Let's look and see. Well, they're coming down. That's Vanina X ahead.
Yeah, it is.
And there it is down the inside. Well, I mean, how dumb can you get? Not only is it dumb, it's your own teammate.
I know. Taken to the dirt there was Kamara in his
And in fact,
Corvette.
both cars have lost their rear wings because both rear wing end flaps interlocked and snatched the rear wing off both the Ford. Well, you shake your head, get them in and give him the you-know-what of his life.
Martin Matzke is not going to be a popular guy. That's him driving in. He's the guy that went into the back of Vanina X's car. I think he might have to park somewhere else.
Well, to be truthful, how you think you can overtake at that part of the racetrack is beyond me. And in fact, he didn't even attempt. He just bumped into the back of Vanina X's car. Vanina would not have really known he was about to do something as stupid as that. And she went round, and in the process, the rear wings interlocked, and therefore both of them are in the pits.
Those yellow cars have a magnetic attraction for one another. They did have a little bit of a coming together with different drivers in Abu Dhabi.
It's a boy-girl thing.
Is that what it is? He didn't want to be outdone. Well, I'll tell you what, he hasn't shone as a result, has he? Here
Look
we
at
go.
the pressure.
That's on the Ford. A bit of brake fire there on the carbon disc. Meanwhile, I'll tell you up front, it's pretty close, and Makawicki definitely putting a bit more pressure on the Corvette. Matzke gets out of his car, the other car is right behind, also being pushed out of the way, and that's really disappointing. But look, Makawicki, I thought he might actually have to go into turn 1. He decided not to, but he's as close as I've seen him so far in this race.
Well, he's certainly very racy, and he's been that way since we've seen him in a Ford GT this year. A step up from the Aston Martin that he enjoyed, and particularly in Argentina when they had that victory, the Hexas team. So putting pressure yet again. The trouble is, you saw when the Ford came into the pits and stopped the heat of the brakes, the rear disc brake, those are carbon fibre brakes, and it caught fire. Imagine the temperature that are on the brakes of these cars. Okay, they're getting the benefit of some cooling, but they're not very far short of the temperature of the ones that caught fire.
No, that's right. While they're still going, it's probably a good thing, but coming in hot like that, you see the difference. Great onboard shot this as you wind your way through the wooded area of this Zolder circuit.
Lost a little bit there, got a little bit of understeer getting close to the rear wing of the Corvette. So that's something that Makawicki's got to think about. He knows that he can get under the rear wing of the Corvette, but he has to do it at a point on the track where he can take advantage of it. And he lost that fraction just coming through the exit of turn 11.
Yeah, down towards the final chicane, the Jackie X chicane here. In a little while, they'll be heading down that pit lane, but we're still 7 minutes away from pit lane opening up. Bit of oversteer. Fred having to give it a big old corrective dab of opposite lock there. Not close enough, certainly, to attack into turn 1. And Marcus Winkelhock still holding on to third in the Lamborghini, then Enger, then Peter Cox in the black Lamborghini, and then chased by Piccini, then Krum, and Braverman, and off. That's the third place car, has dropped to fourth. He's got back on. Winkelhock has lost a place to Enger.
Made a mistake coming out of the exit of turn 1, opened the door for Thomas Enger. Thomas doesn't need to be asked twice. He took it, and now he can do what he knows he's capable of doing. Watch again. Now the back end stepped out. That's what happened. Car goes off the track onto the gravel. Thomas Enger drives past, says, "Thank you very much, Marcus. Easy peasy, and I'll take that from you any day of the week." There's the back end losing control, losing just under acceleration out of turn 1. Just said, "I've had enough." The Michelin couldn't cope with the 600 and whatever horsepower the Lamborghini produces.
There's his teammate and team manager at the team, Mark Basseng, and that must have been a nervous moment for them. They lost one car at that corner. Look how close the 2 leaders are now, though, as Nick Katsberg in the Corvette really having to think about this, because Makawicki breathing all over him, and as they come down towards the top corner, now called Ria, this corner, there's no chance just yet, but he is looking for every possibility.
It is possible to overtake into turn 12. They call it Ria. because that's where I did it in 1982 and took the lead of the Grand Prix.
On a certain Mr. Alan Jones, I believe, John.
No. It was a certain Mr. Keke Rosberg.
Ah, yes, Keke Rosberg. Right, okay.
Look how close now, under the rear wing of the Corvette.
Let's see whether he can attack into turn one. He is as close as we've seen on this section of circuit. Can he pick up the slipstream and go for it? Has a look down the inside. He's not really going for it, though. He's still just keeping the pressure on young Katzberg.
But he did the right thing. He realised he wasn't sufficiently alongside the Corvette to take the corner, so he got out of it early enough to enable the Corvette to swing across the front of the Ford. Mike Hazeman's saying, oh, thank goodness that Fred McAvicky wasn't so feisty that he just wanted to make a point.
Where's the smile, Mike? You were smiling earlier. You weren't smiling that time. It was all getting a little bit hairy. But there's still a few minutes to go before the pit window opens up and Mike Hazeman takes over the lead car. And McAvicky wants to try and be in front by the time they hand over.
I think I think that Mike Hazeman should be getting himself ready because it isn't that long. And I wonder who will be the first of these two lead cars to dive into the pits as the Ford again closes up under braking, again using a lot of the curb on the inside. Need to be careful that you don't go beyond what the marshals, the stewards think is acceptable.
Yeah, looking okay for the moment, and Katzberg doing a fine job of just doing enough to stay in front of this Ford at the moment as we come up to that same corner, the top corner at the top of the straight, back of the end of the circuit if you like, but a bit of work still from McAvicky to keep the car under control.
The Corvette right now looks the easier of the two cars for the respective drivers. Fred McAvicky's having to push very hard, and in doing so he's forcing the back again just to give way under acceleration, again under the rear wing of the Corvette. But we saw the Corvette's got the Mumba where it counts, can out-drag the Ford down, but does the Ford can look down the inside? Wisely again waits.
Yeah, there is still plenty of time in this race. It is not worth getting into a situation as we saw, a little look there, but not worth getting into the situation we saw from the two front row cars that made contact at the start of this race. And anyone would think it was a Formula Ford race. It's still a 1 hour race. You've still got to deal with the pit stops. And McAvicky, I'm sure, applying as much pressure as he can, but still conscious of keeping this car here in one piece. You ride back on board with the V8 powered Ford GT. And you've got to wonder how the tyre wear is affecting these two cars. They'll get a new set of boots at the pit stop, so they're sort of getting towards the end of their time, the tyres. But both cars seem to be handling, as you say, if anything, it's McAvicky who's been struggling with oversteer more than Katzberg.
Well, he's been trying to force the issue, and therefore he's been getting on the throttle a little bit earlier, maybe at a point when the tyre hasn't got sufficient grip. Again, right under the rear wing. He is going to have a look down into turn 12 at this lap. I'm absolutely certain. Watch for the Ford. Is he going to come out alongside? Not close enough this time.
Not quite there, is he? So he does tuck in behind. Still no mistakes from Katzberg. Big, powerful cars, these. A little bit too much gas too soon in the corner. The back end will step out. But we haven't seen Katzberg make any mistakes like that so far. And they're going to continue around for at least another lap. Well, what happened in the incident between the two yellow cars earlier? Let's go and find out. Haley's with Martin Matzke.
Martin, that was an unfortunate incident for the team. Whose fault would you say that was?
There was a long fight between me and Vanina. Finally, it was finished. I was finished, but I think it was no mistake from the both side. We just racing and this happened. So I think it was just a racing incident.
Thank you.
Well, it'll be interesting to get the other side of that story. I hope we get to talk to Vanina later. Meanwhile, that was almost a big attempt there from Fred McAvicky. Didn't quite come off.
It was the most successful attempt to date. It didn't come off, but it certainly gave Nicky Katzberg the reality that the Ford is not here just to finish second, as we're getting closer yet again to that mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, still in third place is the Aston Martin of Thomas Enger. Behind him, Marcus Wicklock, who recovered from that trip through the edge of the gravel and was okay. Let's just take another look here at this attempt by McAvicky, John.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost in position, but the Corvette again on the right hand side of the track is able to sweep across, carries more speed at the entry to the corner than the Ford would have been able to have done. But it was I think that Nicky Katzberg would have thought, well, that's as close as I want this car behind me to get, and I have to be aware that I'm under pressure every corner of this lap.
So up through the gears goes Makovic from first, right up at the end of the track there. He's up to 5th gear before they're back on the brakes. Little slide from the Corvette. First time I've really seen it move at all. Bassliners on the left, Mark Henrici on the right. Their race was run, I'm afraid, at the first corner. There we go. Torrid start to the season. Here we go then. Is this going to be another attempt from Makovic? He has a look down the inside again. It's not enough.
I tell you, you've got to be so careful, because once the Corvette commits to turn 1, there is no taking prisoner, and Makovic, if he pushes his nose another 5 or 6 feet down in the inside of turn 1, then there will be contact.
Yeah, the pit window will be open, I think, when they come around next time, John. So who will go first? Will they both come in at the same time? Mike Hazelman's, the smile is back on his face, but now it starts to get serious, because surely that pit stop's coming up pretty soon, and Makovic knows it and is still hounding the youngster.
But Mike Hazelman's co-driver Nicky Katzberg in the lead Corvette, he's enjoying it so much he hasn't even got his, but he's just got his helmet on now, got to get his gloves on. I would like to see a driver who's going to take over a car at the first opportunity to be ready maybe 5 minutes, not sitting there enjoying the race.
Look how close he is again to the back of that Corvette. Absolutely stunning cars these, but when these guys are behind the wheel, they race them as hard as anything. And Makovic, the 30-year-old Frenchman who impressed us on several occasions last year in the Hexis Aston Martin, is doing it again here in the Ford GT. He won the qualifying race last time, and he's squeezing once again.
I think what will happen is the Corvette will go into the pits, the Ford will stay out, try and maximise the switch over, the crossover time. Corvette doesn't go in, Ford doesn't go in, Aston goes in. Thomas Enger.
This could work well for Aston. Let's see what happens. Peter Cox is in, so is Andrea Piccini. Michael Crum is in, so is David Brabham, but staying out there is the Brazilian car Bernoldi, and the 2 leaders have stayed out. Now that is a surprise, as you say, but the Corvette may be trying to sort of trying to stop the Ford taking the advantage. Here comes Makovic. Oh, he's up the inside. That was lovely. And the Corvette went a bit wide, and he was through.
And I thought there might have been a switch over coming through turn 2, but Fred Makovic has done what he's tried to do for what now 17 laps, and that is to get that Ford ahead of that Corvette, and he's done so. And if I was in the Ford team now, I would say come straight into the pits and let's do the driver change.
Now, can Hexis weave their magic once again? These guys were the fastest stoppers by a mile last time out in Abu Dhabi. Other teams are scratching their heads, wondering how they do it. Well, we're watching at the moment. Only 2 mechanics on the job of changing the wheels, of course. Each driver helps the other out and in, and it looks as though they're almost ready to go. And away goes the number 4, Aston Martin, and that looked good once again.
Clean stop. We don't know the time, the in and out. We're looking to get some information as regarding the time it was when he came into the pit lane, the time when he left. Then we can make the calculation for you. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait for everybody to cycle through before we get the true picture. But is the Ford coming in? Is the Corvette coming in? The bulk of the field have gone into the pit lane 1 lap earlier than these lead 2 cars.
But Makovic's grabbed the lead. That's from his point of view the most important thing. Is he staying out there? Yes, but the Corvette is in. That has to be the right tactic from their point of view.
So which of these 2 teams is going to make the call, the correct call? Mike Hazelman's ready to take over from Nicky Katzberg, who really only up until the last lap was headed by anybody, and that's Fred Makovic, who stays out, goes and does another lap, I suspect, to try and get that clear air and hopefully make another 10th or 3/10 or even a second before he makes it. Even that small amount of time can be vital when it comes to the pit stop and getting back out.
So Nick gets out, Mike gets on board. The other two, the 2 mechanics are hard at work, getting each wheel changed, rushing around. Those are big, heavy wheels. The ones coming off are very hot as well, of course. Mike Hazelman safely on board. Belts are done up. 1 more wheel to go to send him on his way. Remember, the Ford has stayed out there. Away goes. Hazelman's looked pretty good, didn't it? And away it goes.
Yeah, it's another clean stop. We don't know, again, the actual time of that stop, or the in and the out time. That's the key.
The other Hexis car is in, by the way, and this is the car that managed to make up so much ground in Abu Dhabi. I wonder if they can do the same for the number 3 car, as Piccioni now will be taking over that car. Away it goes, and tyre smoke billowing as it gets on its way.
So a Corvette takes all that time to get down the pit lane. Of course, the Aston that we saw Piccioni jump on board, he is at the pit lane exit. Nicky Katzberg done a great job for the Corvette team.
Yeah, really nice job there indeed. Now, there you can see that the Christian Hohenadel in the number 4 Aston Martin, close behind the Corvette there of Mike Hazelman. So again, the Hexis stop was very quick, and it's got them out with the Corvette. So very impressive stuff. And Christian Hohenadel did a mighty job in qualifying. only in his second ever GT1 event, and he's putting the pressure on Hazement.
He certainly is. Hazement, of course, knows this place better than any human being. Down the inside, no. Hazement knows where to place his car, knows how to deny the Aston Martin the opportunity of being caught out as the two Lamborghinis, and is it the second of the Aston Martins, the Thomas Enger car, of course, now being driven by Alex Miller.
Yeah, absolutely, and Hohenadel still putting a lot of pressure here on the back of the Corvette. Now this could be vital for a podium finish in this race, but of course we've still got to wait and see what happens to the Ford of Fred Makovicky. It's not come into the pits yet, the Ford. Here comes Hohenadel again, looking one way, then the other. Can't find a way through as yet, but the reigning GT3 champion, Christian Hohenadel, must be loving this, and he's putting one of the most experienced drivers in Hazement under pressure here. Can he get a run on him down towards turn one? The V12 Aston Martin down the inside of the V8 Corvette, but the Corvette just turns in front.
Well,